Hello and welcome back to the Douglas Fir Association. And this time round, we've we've officially slipped out of sync. Now we're going in different paths. Well, we're on the same path. We're just moving at different speeds. Matt has far surpassed me now, and I've just been busy. I'm going away for a while, so just working it out on air, so to speak. What we're going to do now is talk about mainly a really pivotal moment in the show that we experienced last week, and then we'll probably take a bit of a break. Not that anyone's fucking watching or listening, but for the sake of chronology here, we'll probably from this point finish season two in our own time until we get to the very last episode, and then we'll kind of sync back up and then finish season two and beyond. So, the main thing we're talking about, spoilers, is the death of Leland Palmer. And those two episodes, really, where we find out he's the killer, that Bob is involved in with everything wrapped up in that, and then the kind of the two episodes where it starts to unravel, and basically Cooper's like, right, give me 24 hours. I know I'm gonna be able to sort this out, and he just goes on a tear, and he figures it out, and he remembers what Laura said to him in his dream, and it all kind of comes full circle. So, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, man, it was fantastic. That whole 2 episode spread was just incredible. I thought it's some of the best episodes of the show so far. The tenseness of the ultimately Coop finding out that it's Leland is just brilliant. The person that he would have least suspected, I guess. It was just fantastic, and everything sort of culminated in that episode. I think where we found out, obviously, that Cooper found out, sorry, that Leland was the killer, and that whole scene where he's cradling him in his arms as he's passing away. It's such a great scene. It really is one of the best moments of TV for me.
Yeah, that's we'll get to that. I want to go back a little bit to when they first get Leland. I like how they kind of trap him, and they kind of
Yeah,
Cooper realizes that, okay, if I out Leland, something might go down. So let's just for now say, all right, Benjamin Horn, we're taking you in. Leland, you come along. You're the lawyer, and he just gives Truman the little shove him in the cell.
yeah,
So they kind of like lure him in like a child, and then he just immediately just freaks out
yeah,
and just starts going like, rah, and that's kind of where Bob kind of comes out, and you get that scene, which to me just it reminds you of the Joker when he just starts laughing
yeah,
maniacally. Well, not even laughing, just he's just this devilish grin on his face. He's kind of like chuckling to himself, and and then Bob comes out. What did you think of that kind of reveal when it kind of he begins to actually speak through Leland for the first time?
yeah. So I think just after the last episode we talked about on the last episode we filmed,
Yeah,
obviously that was the death of can't remember her name.
Maddie.
Maddie, death of Maddie.
Yeah,
And the next episode is wrapping her up in the plastic, the same as Laura Palmer. Um, and he goes and drops her off, doesn't he, at that lake or at the bottom of the falls.
yeah,
You really start to see this character now, which we've not seen before. Leland, obviously, we saw it the last episode before that, with Bob coming out. But yeah, he's just completely see a different character arc of Leland, and his acting is fantastic, isn't it? He's one of the best actors in the show, and it's the way he plays the two parts, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or whatever it is just fantastic.
yeah. That's a good comparison. That scene where he's like, but even just like the first episode after the killing of Maddie, where he's I forget what he's. I think he's just in the house as if nothing happened, and then
Yeah,
he's talking to Sarah, and then he opens the closet. He pulls the golf bag is just like a hand sticking out or whatever it
yeah,
is, and he's just like fuck and then he drives off. And then when Cooper and Truman see him, he's singing and dancing at the Great Northern.
yeah,
He's doing little with the golf club and everything.
yeah.
And then they kind of inform him. I don't know. No, I'm not sure if at that point, no, they don't know that Maddie's been killed. There's something that some piece of information to give to him where it kind of dampens his mood somewhat. But then he goes around the
Yeah,
corner and he has this little like he's just like again just kind of like
yeah.
not
I think
laughing but like kind of giggling to himself and ugh,
I think they tell him that Ben Horn was their prime suspect, and that they got enough evidence on him.
That's it. Yeah, I knew there was something that rattled him. Yeah, and then
Yeah. And then he went around the corner. Obviously, does that fantastic laugh, that snigger
mm,
almost,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
when Coop almost comes around the corner and catches him. But then he's obviously pretending again that he's crying, isn't he? So
yeah.
yeah, that whole build up is fantastic. And then obviously we get the scene afterwards where Leland's racing the car around these bends and really accelerating,
You know,
and then
so
like
something I've never like thought of. Well, I guess I thought about it, but I've never like looked into it or seen if anyone has a theory. But in the car, Leland's singing some like old Showtime kind of show tune song or whatever, and then we cut to Cooper and Truman in the car, and Cooper's singing along to it almost like he kind of knows the song.
yeah.
Did you catch that?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, so like Cooper's kind of going along with the lyrics or like for finishing them. And I've never known. Part of me thinks I've never really thought about this. Maybe Cooper's like maybe there's an element of a psychic to him or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's one little beat. Whenever I see it, I'm like, huh, that's really odd. With like no explanation. Yeah. Well, not that Twin Peaks is a towering pillar of explaining things, but that's just one little thing that jumped out to me.
Yeah, it's another thing for interpretation, is it? I guess.
Sure.
But then we've obviously got Coop walking up to the trunk of the car after Leland's nearly swerved into him. So he's pulled them over, and we get the really tense scene where he's coming up towards the boot, which I suspected he wouldn't have got to the boot anyway, because that would have been such a shit reveal. But obviously it's built for tension, isn't it? So
yeah. Leland's just like, yeah, about that. Oh well. Take me in. The end. Although there's actually, I forgot, there's actually a bit when like Cooper's distracted and Leland almost like, I think he's got a golf club and it looks like he's about to hit him, so like
yeah.
It feels like the wheels are falling off a bit now, and it's kind of don't know whether you can say he's being more open with his weirdness, but
it's almost like he wants to be found out as well, because he asks Coop if he wants to see his golf clubs.
True, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe that's Leland trying to break out. I don't know. That's an interesting point. Yeah, but it's very well done. And then he's taken in, and the scene we just discussed where he kind of the Bob comes out, and then we have fucking Dick Tremaine up in the because I think the holding cell is meant to be in the basement, right, or at least downstairs.
Yeah.
And then he comes in to speak to Lucy and Andy, and he lights a cigarette, which sets off the fire alarm, and then all hell breaks loose from there. But yeah, that scene where it's quite grim for TV. I read into Lynch where he talks about like there's like standards and practices they'd have to kind of get away with certain things, and really the way that Bob makes Leland kill himself is by ramming his head into like the metal frame of the door. You never see it. You don't even really see it. Well, you kind of see him run off screen, but there's a close up of the door and it shuts, and very briefly you just see a bit of skin hanging on it, and it's kind of like they obscure it enough that it's not really that gory, but the detail is there that it's pretty grim.
Yeah, there was actually an earlier scene, just rolling back a second, with Donna and Leland, which was quite tense.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
It looked as if like Donna could have met her end as well, but she managed to get out of there. I think, doesn't one of the police come to the door or something like that, or he gets called away?
Yeah, and see just kind of playing with her hair while her back is turned. It's very sinister, and then he's like, "Let's dance,"
Yeah.
It's just, that's another maybe sign as well, because he's just killed Maddie, and it's as if like someone else turns up. He's like, "Oh, I'll kill her too." Like it's just it's rolling down the hill, and it's getting really, and that's kind of where. And then so another thing that I always thought was just like wow is when I guess the Donna and Cooper thing converges, and she tells him about Harold and the diary.
Yeah.
And I think they go in, and she gets, is it the missing page or something? They get, see, these things you forget even though you watched it a week ago. There's a missing page, isn't there? Was it found? Where was the missing page found?
I remember.
Or maybe it was just, no, it can't have been. I don't know. Oh, good God. Yeah, there's so much made of Laura Palmer's secret diary, and then the secret diary, and then there's a page missing here and a page missing there. But regardless, Cooper has in front of him a diary page that Laura's written that describes the dream. And he's like, "That's the dream I had." And Don, I think, no, I think it's Andy who says, "But that's impossible." And Cooper's like, "Yes, it is." He enjoys that shit. He's just like, "I love the
Yeah.
impossible," you know. So that is very important. The fact that Laura had the same dream as Cooper, and it's just like, what is going on there, you know? So
Yeah.
I like all that stuff, and then obviously he rounds up the suspects, and we get the old man again. The
Yeah. And that's when the ring reappears as well.
True,
I think, is
yes,
it?
the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and he gets the ring back. I don't know why for me when I think there's a couple of scenes in the Roadhouse, like when they're trying to decide whether Leland will get charged with the murder of Jacques Renault. This sequence with the suspects, it doesn't feel like the Roadhouse to me. Yet when it's
Mm.
filled with people and it's a bar situation, it looks and feels different, even though it's probably the same set. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I kind of separate the two, but we get the old man saying that gum you like is going to come back in style. And then if I told you that was how they announced the third season of Twin
Yeah,
Peaks,
you did.
yeah, that was really
Brilliant.
fun. So it's one of the phrases. But yeah, so just the actual death of Leland. I mean, I think we talked about before of like what is really going on. Is it just Bob? Is this evil entity who's just taken over Leland and that's it?
Yep.
Or is there a mix going on? Is it Leland? You know, um, but they kind of present it, I would say, in the episode as kind of like Leland was abused from from as a child.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty dark when he kind of talks about that and how he first met Bob, and he kind of goes through what happened to him and how they wanted Laura. You know, so it's very, very dark stuff. Um, and then they have the scene at the end, which reminds me of Psycho. You must have seen Psycho, surely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminds me of the scene at the end of Psycho. They're like, well, let's explain the whole thing to the audience. You know, they have the whole thing about a psychopath is no, but you do have who is it? It's Cooper, Truman, Albert, and Briggs talking about.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that Truman is just like, I don't buy it. Like, you know, he was just crazy, right? There's no Bob, which is what anyone would naturally think. And so I like that that's there. And then obviously Cooper believes a bit more deeply in these kind of spiritual things. And then Albert's just like, well, maybe Bob's just the evil that men do.
Yeah.
So there's interesting. Do you have any interpretation there, or you just, you know?
I, I don't think so. No.
Probably best because you know there may be more, you know, to
Yeah.
kind of fuel that kind of that debate, I suppose. But
I really like the integration of Briggs now, and it's especially the episodes I'm getting to. Like, he's really coming to his own now, and he's sort of more of a central character, which I really like. Because his acting's just come on tons since I've watched him at the start. Because you don't really see much of him to begin with, do you?
no,
A few dinner time scenes around Bobby's house, but yeah, I'm really liking that character now. And I like the way they brought him in with the It was when he talked to Coop, wasn't it? When he said that he had them signals.
yeah,
And that was one of the answers towards one of the dream questions that he had. So I really like how he's coming into it now.
yeah. I distinctly remember seeing that for the first time when he's like, well, we have these messages from deep space. It's usually gibberish, but here we have Cooper. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, why is his name beaming through space? Like, you do get these like really wacky moments that kind of, I don't know. I guess the fact that the tone of the show is so wacky to begin with, it kind of just fits along with it when you get something like that.
I mean, you think you've got the show figured out. You've got a supernatural killer called Bob.
True.
And then you've got radio waves coming from space. There's something about owls.
The owls. God. Yeah, man. I'm kind of sad that I don't have the time to keep pushing through it and stuff. But if you have any thoughts at the moment of what you're watching, we don't have to stick in chronology of what I'm watching. Anything that's standing out to you and what you've been checking out past the death of Leland.
Yeah. So Dick Tremaine and
Lucy, Andy.
Dick Tremaine and Andy have started to become a bit pally. So that's sort of continuing along a path. There's so many different shoots going off with the stories that I'm at the moment. I have put a pause on it, so I've capped it. I've got 8 episodes left of season 2, so I've capped it there.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go any further until you have.
Yeah.
I think I finished the rest of your disc, and then I finished another disc.
Yeah.
But that's as far as I've gone. So there's so much happening. I mean, there's stuff going off with a character that I thought had died. I'm assuming you know who that is. Not died, sorry. He was disabled.
Oh, Leo.
Yeah, so Leo's back to life.
I've forgotten exactly how that comes to pass. That'd be interesting to get to that.
I'm assuming you remembered he comes back though, don't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. But
Yeah.
I've forgotten to what degree. But then I remember you messaged me saying something like Leo's back and his acting's only got worse. It is true. Like he is quite good when he's just that silent.
Yeah.
There's a menace behind the suspense of will he? You know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
but when he actually has lines, like full sentences.
So Benjamin Horner's gone full on batshit. He's reenacting the American Civil War.
You got to that part.
Yeah, and it's the last episode that I watched. He's finally snapped out of it. They did a whole reenactment of the war.
That's crazy to me because it feels like that storyline goes on for fucking ever.
It does. It does. Ever since Leland dies, doesn't it? And he's released. Right. That's when he starts to get the little figures, and then they do a full reenactment. Yeah. It did overstay its welcome a bit, I think, but it was a distraction, I think, from other things going on.
It's an infamous storyline for sure.
Yeah,
people are not really big fans of it. Has there been a scene yet where he's looking at his old home movies?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that was part of that.
I love that when he's just kind of he's kind of like his face is up against the projection. He's just like kind of. I like that scene. It's a cool little moment. But then once it gets to the Civil War reenactment stuff, I remember it being a bit tedious.
Yeah. What else has been happening? There's so much. There really is. So we've now been introduced in the episodes that I'm at. We've now been introduced to Cooper's ex-partner. Can't forget his name.
Wyndham Earl.
Wyndham Earl, yeah. So we've actually met him in the episodes that I'm at. And he's something to do with Leo as well. So I don't want to say too much in case your memory's a bit foggy. I'd rather you remember.
I do. I remember where that went. The Wyndham Earl stuff. Interesting.
Yeah, so we've had a body turn up at the police station during a blackout.
Yeah.
Which I think he caused with an explosion. There's so much. There's literally tons that's happened. There's Cooper had drugs planted on him by a Canadian cop from One-Eyed Jacks.
Okay, that Canadian guy. So I watched that episode and when they're first introduced, and I sat there with Connie. I was like, Connie. I was like, I didn't say Connie by name. I don't speak to her like that. But I was like, you know what? I said, I'm like a pretty passionate like pacifist, and she's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, no, like I really truly believe like violence is just like so fruitless, so useless. Is the root cause of so many problems. Like I just think, I've never been in a proper fight in my life. Been in many pretend fights with wrestling. I've hit people really hard, but I've never been in like a full bore fight before, and I hope that streak continues. But I looked at that Canadian. I was like, that guy, I just want to punch him in the face. Like, he's just got such a punchable. Look at that. He just looks like a twat. He just looks like such a twat. He's just got a punchable face. I don't know what it is. And she just looked at me like I was mental. I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But, yeah. Where he's just sat there with that mustache and just the fucking sour look on his face, like.
Yeah, we've had so many different moments at this point.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we're never going to cover everything, obviously, but just to go back before we wrap this up to the death of Leland again, I do think that to show the two extremes of his Ray Wise's performance, that kind of manic, crazy, unhinged Bob kind of moment, and then slipping back into Leland and just this like really raw, open, emotional performance, and when Cooper realizes that, like, okay, he's not going to make it, and he kind of, like, rolls him over to his side, almost like a baby cradling him, and then Cooper kind of essentially is guiding him to. Oh, yeah, you already mentioned it was a great scene and everything, but I just that is one of the best moments of the show, I think, for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
I'm really intrigued to see how dark Leland is in Fire Walk with Me.
yeah,
I know you said Fire Walk with Me gets pretty dark, doesn't it?
yeah, and I remember a lot about it, but just not like the full picture. There's lots I've probably forgotten.
Yeah.
And there's a few things I definitely will never forget, but I'm very intrigued to get back to that and revisit it for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that there's, again, it's open to interpretation, of course, of what was the real story there with Leland and Bob and stuff. But I think it was quite beautiful in its own way, of the way that he was basically seeing Laura, and then the idea that she might accept him into the afterlife, and that's when the life just leaves him.
Yeah.
And also the visual of Cooper, who's always so like, well, except for the scenes where his hair's sticking up like that when he wakes up in the morning, but usually his hair is so perfectly like coiffed, and like, to see it just like hanging down and stuff, and Cooper feels like he's, it's a different side to him, I think, and I like that. Although in the next scene it's perfectly combed back again. I just like they're just like, okay, Leland's there, just give me a comb and we'll just let's go get a coffee.
With everything that's gone on, and all the different side stories that's happening, it's easy to forget that Bob's still obviously out there as a spirit and not yet inhabited anyone. So I'm really intrigued to see who, if anyone, he inhabits again. I'm assuming he will for the show to continue the way it goes, but especially with enough episodes to.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm going away for a bit, and I will be taking the episodes with me. So I'll hope to get through some. We'll see what happens. I don't know, and I'm really excited to, once I'm back, we can just full steam ahead and kind of get to the end. And I'm excited for all of it, man. I'm just really it's it's kind of a weird, because we started so strong, and then I just had to basically just stop cold turkey pretty much, and it's been itching to get back to it. But
yeah, well, we're going all in on Lynch when you get back anyway, so
yeah. So and you've got to the James stuff as well. The Evelyn. That's another not so loved storyline. How far along has that got in your chronology?
I don't know. It seems to have progressed to a point now where it might finish. So James has been accused of shooting the husband.
God, right.
And he's come up to the house, and she's now shot a brother instead of James. So, well, I don't know how much further that storyline's really going to go. Possibly end there, and if it does, it was just completely pointless.
So did you get to the beautiful, wonderful moment where he says, "Oh my God, you set me up"?
Yeah. Some more stellar acting there.
I mean, I don't think James is a bad actor or anything, but that was not a proud moment. I would assume.
Is that some moments, definitely. Why?
Why? Exactly. You set me up. Like, it's and again, it just doesn't really go anywhere or do anything, and
yeah.
I have heard people talk about that part of season 2 where it's like you're almost getting the writers and directors are coming into working it with Lynch kind of a way. It's almost like they're trying to do Lynch, and so it's kind of coming off as a bit. At times, it's kind of coming off as a bit of a what do you call it? Like it pales in comparison. It's not the real deal. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's,
imitation.
Yeah. It's gonna come off as an imitation rather than a full bore Lynchian extravaganza. That's interesting. Just to think about what would Twin Peaks look like if every episode was full on David Lynch focusing on everything. I think it would be a wildly different show in its totality. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's just an interesting thing to think about. And
then every great episode that we've watched and that we've both commented on is directed by Lynch, so it's it could have only gone from strength to strength, I think.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder if half of the stuff that has happened would have happened, all the side stuff.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I kind of feel like he would have found that as just pointless blur to the story.
Perhaps, or he maybe would have just come up with his own pointless little side
Yeah,
stories too, which is also a thing. But I mean, I remember like some of the bits from the very last episode of season 2 and the way that the show ended, for like
yeah,
25 years. But I've been listening to like these podcasts I used to listen to of these guys reviewing the show, and they're describing that last episode, and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about some of how crazy that last episode gets. So that's
yeah.
that's really one to look forward to. So if again, I've said it before, but the way season 2 kind of gets a bit off track, it really ends with a David Lynch episode. I think that's something that's
And then how much of a gap was there then between that ending and the new series that was released?
25 years, or
Oh,
26 years. Well, no, think about it. 91, 26 years. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So with Fire Walk with Me, it would be 25 years. But if we're going from like chronology of the actual story,
Yeah, because you said didn't David Lynch just think of it and say like, well, Coop would have been this age in the Red Room.
yeah, that was kind of part of the impetus. I think it was part of the impetus. They were thinking like, wow, that Red Room scene that we said was 25 years later, it's coming up on 25 years later.
Yeah,
And that was, I think, part of what sparked his interest in going back to Twin Peaks. Um, but yeah,
so much to talk about in that. So I'm just looking forward to getting to a point now where we're both synced up again, and even if
yeah,
it takes a couple of weeks, it takes a couple of weeks.
yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna power through. So,
All right, so only one more thing to do, and that's to drop a quote. Do you have any ideas?
oh, there's loads in there. What was the quote that Coop said to Leland? Can't quite remember what it was.
At which point?
During his death, there was like a final line he said to him. I thought was really poignant.
Um, the main thing I remember is just him saying, "Look into the light," or "Look to the light." That's
That was it.
the
Yeah,
main refrain. Look to the light, Leland. Look to the light. But that whole speech he does is quite nice. Actually, it's very kind of feels like a very
yeah,
Lynchian kind of philosophical. It's kind of a cool little moment there. But yeah, look to the light, Leland. Yeah. Very. I went back again and watched that whole death sequence, which is
yeah.
partially because Connie was like, because I'm watching it and she's not really paying full attention. It was the funeral of Leland, and she's like, "Oh, who died now?" I'm like, "Leland." She's like, "Leland died?" I was like, "Yes, you've seen this show." And she said, "Well, how did he die?" And I went, sometimes you just don't want to explain. So I just went back. I put the other disc in, and I just said, "Just watch this." And we watched the last 20 minutes of the episode, which I didn't regret. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we will come back at some point and talk about the end of season 2. So thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you with the next one.
Bye bye.